Hello and good day, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is your captain speaking, and welcome to We Educate Racing. In this video, we're going to go over how to tune your anti-roll bars in Forza Horizon 5. But before we do, we got to go... Well, I already picked up the part, so we can skip that whole thing. Instead, we can go straight to our tuning page, and we can just get straight to it. I will have the tires, gears, and alignment videos linked in the description of this video, just so that everything is all here. If you guys have not seen those videos yet, it's all there. And then for the future videos, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss out when these videos come out. I don't particularly care if you guys turn on your notification bell or whatever. I need you guys to sit down and like really focus on this. I don't want you just tune in because the notification says, hey, I posted it, watch it right away. No, sit down, pay attention. I just want to make sure you guys get this, okay? Otherwise, what am I doing this for? I'm trying to help you guys out. And I'd appreciate the help back if you guys subscribe and like the video. But that's only up to you. All I care about is that you guys learn this and that you guys understand and can tune on your own, okay? Okay, all right. Anti-roll bars. Pay attention, real quick. In Gran Turismo, we get a 100 scale. So I would set the front on the 40% and the rear at the 60%. Okay, so but because we only have 65, the middle is 32.5. Right. Okay. So 40% of 65, I'm too busy to do the exact values for that. So instead, what I'm going to do is just set this to maybe, I don't know, 26, and this to maybe, I don't know, 40. Totally guessing. I don't know. It doesn't matter. That part doesn't matter. What matters is this setup is for oversteer. Okay. Um, in the alignment video, I mentioned that we're going to generate oversteer with the rear right height. Okay. But at the same time, when we turn, it's inevitable that the car rolls. It rolls because of inertia and center mass, center gravity, and all that. Yeah. It's going to roll no matter what. Well, anti-roll bar, as it states in the name, restricts the car from rolling any more than it needs to. Okay. The reason why we do not want extremes is because the stiffer the suspension becomes, the less grip we get. There is a window where we get agility, but then that agility falls off the more extreme the suspension stiffness gets. Okay, so we do not want too stiff of anti-roll bars, and I would recommend do not exceed 40. 40 should be the stiffest your anti-roll bar should ever become. Unless you're drifting or rally, then you can play around with that. And we'll get to rally cars and drift cars in the future. But just to keep in mind how important anti-roll bars are in terms of the role that your car is playing. Okay, and as mentioned before, this is just for road and street racing, track racing, and all that. We're not gonna get on the road. I mentioned that this is intended to be a drift car, but for the sake of just standard driving, we're gonna tune our anti-roll bars like so. Okay. Now, I'm expecting this 40 to be too stiff, as in when I turn, I'm gonna experience a lot of excess rear end oversteer. See, the thing is, okay, the front roll bars is only leveling the two front suspensions. This only works for the front. Okay, the rear not only works just for the rear, but it also influences the front. The front, like when let's say for instance we're turning right. Okay, weight is going to shift to the left. Okay, the left spring is going to compress because the weight shifts to the left. And because of the anti-roll bar, it's going to compress the right spring as well, even though weight is not on that side. It's just because of the anti-roll bars. No matter how much the compressed end compresses, it's going to pull the it's going to compress the opposite end as well. And if this was set to 100, then if the we're turning right. So if the spring on the left compresses 50%, then the right will also compress 50% for no reason. That's because the anti-roll bar is set at 100. So, and then say for instance this is set to 50%. If the left side compresses 50%, then the right side will compress 25%. Does that make sense? If 25% compressed here, then the right will not compress. Does that make sense? Okay. For my car, for this video, for this setting, I'm just going to leave it at 26. I'm pretty sure over time we're going to adjust this, but this is just to better understand what anti-roll bars are doing. Okay, so for the rear, it influences the front. Okay, but the opposite corner. Say so when we're turning right, weight shifts to the left. Okay, but because the anti-roll bar is stiff on the left, it's pulling the front right down. Because so when the weight shifts to the left, the rear is compressing the right as well, right? The car compresses on the left side. But because the rear is compressing the right as well, it's influencing the front right as well. Okay, we're keeping the front right of the car down as the entire weight of the car shifts to the left, which that's why we want a stiffer rear. But again, this is an oversteer setup, okay, for front engine rear wheel drive cars. Okay, if say you have a Ferrari or a Porsche, Lamborghini, anything rear wheel drive, then you flip this opposite. This is now an understeer setup where the front doesn't necessarily want to roll, but the rear does. But because the front isn't rolling, the rear technically won't roll so much. So a softer rear technically doesn't do anything. But we want to make this big of a gap between front and rear so that the front stiffness is more pronounced. You will feel the understeer with this. Okay, so let's say for instance that my setting here, for example, 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5. Let's just say that this is how I set my ride height. This is an oversteer setup. The rear end is going to swing out when we turn. Okay, this will counteract that in terms of how the car stands. You see, for example, this has a rake. If you don't know what a rake is, it's like the rear end is higher than the front. Okay, this also means there is a shape, the stance, how the car stands at standstill. Okay, when we accelerate, the rear dips and the nose goes up. This is a completely different stance than this. Okay, this behaves oversteerily, and then when we accelerate, it becomes balanced. It's not oversteery anymore. Okay, that changes the stance. That is not good. Okay, when we hit the brakes, the rear end goes up even higher. This is now even more of an oversteer stance. We do not want this. So what we want is not necessarily balanced, because when we accelerate, the weight goes to the back and the rear squats, and now the front is higher than the rear. This is also a different stance, and we don't want that. We want to maintain a stance that where the nose stays lower than the rear. The rear will stay higher, if not balanced or equal, when we accelerate. It will not go any lower. Okay, so for the sake of just this video, we're going to set our ride height like so. Whatever, this isn't final. We'll get to that in the springs video. But for now, we'll set it like so. This is an oversteer setup. Therefore, we're going to set our anti-roll bars like this to counteract any excess oversteer that the rear ride height is generating. Okay, so this will be for that. But that is assuming that the rear end is oversteering, excess oversteer. Okay, but for the sake of this video, we're gonna revert it back to 2640. And then when we go take this out for a drive, we're going to feel how stiff this 40 is, and then we will adjust from that. The rear, for the front, you want it soft because, okay, it's one thing to understand that the spring will compress when we turn, right? Well, the wheel also needs to come up into the wheel well. And if your anti-roll bar is too stiff, then it's like the wheel will not want to go up into the wheel well. You need it to do that to make the car turn. If your anti-roll bars are too stiff, then you're losing grip. Remember, the stiffer the suspension, the less grip. Softer, more grip. Okay. Well, we still want grip, so we stay on the softer end. That's fine. But if you stiffen this, like say for the understeer version of this, then yeah, the front wheel does not want to compress, making the front end oversteer, making the front end understeer. It doesn't want to turn. Okay, so this is why we have our set to an oversteer setup for the beginning, and then when we take this out, I'm expecting to drop the rear end a little bit, and then maybe we might need to lower this as well, but we'll see how much the front wheel is compressing, because we still need it to compress. And it's one thing to set your dampers compression a certain way, but we're not talking necessarily about how it compresses. We're talking about the inevitability of it compressing, and that we want it to compress, and we want to make sure that it does go into the wheel well. Okay, that will grant us the most grip for the front, and yeah. So I wouldn't go any higher than the middle for anti-roll bars for the front, and then same thing for the rear. I wouldn't go any less, unless you want to flip it and get the understeer version, right? So that's totally up to you. If you want an understeer version, then you don't go any lower than half. If you want the oversteer version, then you don't go any higher than half, right? Okay. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the anti-roll bars. Give me a thumbs up to let me know that you guys learned how to tune your anti-roll bars. You see, you're installing anti-roll bars, okay? So if you're to set your anti-roll bars to a soft version, why did you get anti-roll bars in the first place? Okay, and then versus if you have it set too stiff, then why did you get anti-roll bars in the first place, where you can just stiffen your springs? Okay, but because the springs need to be tuned a certain way, that means it's allowed to have play. It's allowed to roll a little bit. And that's why we have anti-roll bars, to limit how much roll. Not necessarily limit, but more like control how much the car wants to roll. It's going to roll, that's fine. But we want to control that roll. We don't want too much, we don't want too less. Right. Okay, next video is going to be obviously the springs, and it's a big one, guys. You're going to learn a lot from this. This is very important. I believe that they should have put springs first. Okay, after gearing, yeah, I would put springs first, and then ride height, and then dampers, and then anti-roll bars. Yeah, that's how I would do it. I would go tires first, then gears, then springs, then dampers, anti-roll bars, then alignment, and then aero, diff, then brakes. That would be me. But technically, it doesn't necessarily matter. It's all the same. See, because in Gran Turismo, you have to tune the car in a certain order, or else the entire thing is messed up. But for some reason in Forza Horizon, you can do it in any order and it still works out fine. You have to do it in order because it's hard to explain. You need to have a foundation, so you have to do it in a specific order. But for this, the foundation isn't necessarily necessary. It's more of just a guideline of like windows of where to place your values to make the car behave a certain way, if that made any sense. Okay, well, um, in the next video is going to be about the springs, and as I mentioned, it's going to be very important because of the foundation of your setup. I mentioned just now, it's obviously not important, but because we can get the spring values to be perfect every time, it we kind of don't necessarily need a foundation. You, it's hard to further explain that. You have to be like, I have a video on tuning for Gran Turismo, so if you're interested in better understanding what I mean, um, go check that video. Go check those videos out. They're technically the same thing that I'm mentioning here, but with just different values. But the principle, the idea is all the same. So yeah, okay. Yeah, make sure you guys subscribe. Don't hit the notification bell. Wait until you have time to sit down and listen, and then check out the video. And then if you learn anything, thumbs up. If you like the content, thumbs up. And then yeah, in the next one, springs, very cool. Lots of stuff in that video. And so until then, guys, we'll see you there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye bye.